Hey, hi, hello, and welcome back to East India Marketing Company. Okay, if you have an unfamiliar face alongside me instead of Jaina, that's Malvika, and I'll shortly tell you who she is. But great to have you back after a long gap. I think we shifted from video to audio and got 3, 4 episodes out. But then again, Jaina and I both got busy. We had a long list of topics that we wanted to talk about, one of them being the topic that we'll handle today. And I'm so glad because of the person that I have with me today, Malvika. And Malvika and I had worked somewhere together in the past, but I think she's one of the most talented and versatile marketers that I've seen. And I think just calling her a marketer is not enough. Although it's still a marketing show, it's my duty to
Mhm.
talk about marketing. But then she's way more than that. Currently, she is the CEO at Ladies Who Lead, which is absolutely taking giant steps to become one of the most thriving communities out there. And we'll hear from Malvika more in context of what is LWL doing and other thoughts that she'll share with us within the gambit of the topic of community marketing, right? So and that's something, Malvika, it so happens that you and I both are today sharing, and then we are taking our own giant steps by building two communities on our own, right? So yeah, welcome to the show, Malvika, and great to have you. Any first thoughts as we get into this conversation?
Thank you so much for having me here today, Alekhya. I've obviously gone through some of the last podcasts of East
Mhm.
India Marketing Company as well. Very, very interesting conversations and all the trivia and examples. I've like thoroughly enjoyed watching them. So I'm also very excited to be here. I think that we've also discussed community marketing before when we were
Yes.
working together and everything, and some interesting insights there that came together. I think for me personally, marketing is the foundation of my career because I graduated from MICA in 2014. And since then, like thinking through the consumer lens and being like a marketer first happens, even, if the responsibilities change, because marketing is very, very foundational to businesses, especially startups, because I've always been with startups in my
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
So marketing, I feel like, is the most exciting thing. And within marketing, I feel that some of the emerging ways of marketing, whether it be community content, all of this is very exciting for me as well. So
Yeah. Yeah.
excited to like get started and chat about this with you.
Correct, correct. Yes, Malvika. And trust me, I mean, Jenna and I, the only common thread that we have within the two of us and any guests that we plan to, and in fact, no, you are the first guest that we have actually invited. There's a long list. Is that
Yeah.
common passion for marketing, right? Foundationally. And I think, yeah, you're right. So just moving forward and talking about, let's say, LWL a little bit more. Just tell us a
Hmm.
little bit about
Sure.
LWL. So, like, what's an elevator pitch that Malvika and others from the team today shares to a potential member?
I think we would just say that Ladies Who Lead is a platform for leaders, whether it be founders, professionals, senior executives, CXOs, VPs, who are women who are looking to do more with their careers and are driven to not just kind of, drive value, but also contribute value from their own learning. So just bringing all of that together on one platform is what Ladies Who Lead does.
Awesome. And okay, one
Yeah,
connect now. Okay, that's your sort of mission and vision in one line, which
that's
you,
the
yeah, perfectly sort of captured. Now, if I remember you correctly, one of your core passion points within the realm of marketing is content marketing. And I remember,
yeah.
I think this was like you were something that you were very passionate about, and you had this penchant for using this love for content marketing to make a big amplification out of a very short idea as well, right? So,
Yeah.
about LWL, I personally, as an outsider, and if I put my marketer hat on, I think it's a great concept and a story that you're building. So when you have that stronger proposition, how do you now cross tab and okay, that favorite verb again comes back.
That's
Cross
your
tab,
favorite word.
yeah, yeah. Cross tab your love for content marketing and what you're doing within content marketing within LWL. I'm really keen to know. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. But first, I must say that cross-tabbing and creating ownability in marketing are two things that I think we do it intuitively, but I think
Mm,
intentionally I heard it from you first when,
mm,
when we were building like plans for the previous brand. But I think that both of them sort of like find their way in LWL as well. We don't market with any big budgets. In fact, we don't have any marketing budgets,
that's
but
all of us.
because
Sorry to cut you, Malvika. Usually we shouldn't do it on a podcast just for editing purpose, nothing else. But none of us have
yeah,
budgets today in this world. That's the world that we stay in. Yeah. So you're not alone. Yeah.
exactly.
Please go on. Yeah.
Exactly. And it is And I think that it's interesting because now you have so many things that you can do to market your brand or your product or what you're building, which doesn't really need budgets because it's more about connecting, etc. But for us, like at LWL, there are two foundations. One is the community that we're building. So each person in themselves, because they've subscribed to a community, automatically becomes an advocate and has their own network. So there's kind of like a network effect there, which lends to, conversation, word of mouth. And second is content, the content that comes out of these interactions, which sort of like can be amplified. We do it in an interesting way. Remember, content is about obviously your own, like content that a brand creates. It could be a collaboration or it could be a curation of content. We don't create too much content because we don't look at ourselves as content creator, but in terms of our collaborations with members and other people, as well as curating content from members and putting that out there for social, for external audiences. We've experimented, I can talk a little bit about that, but we've experimented with these two things and they sort of like are helping us at least grow in a very stable, we've still to kind of like hit a hockey stick in our journey. But it's like like the incoming flow and new customers that's happening on its own at the moment because of these two engines that are sort of like working now as assets for us.
Awesome. And Malvika, this is great because I'll tell you, some feedback that we have got from the first few set of subscribers to our podcast is that they want to listen to us talking about real world problems that we are grappling at the workplace. So this problem that you hit upon, that zero, or actually probably zero budget, and with that, how do you build a brand and on the back of content is something I'm 100% sure many viewers of our podcast and listeners will relate with, right? So can you just get a little deeper into that and give some nuances of some of the things that you're doing within that by tapping into this like network effect and hence the content, let's say examples and channels, like what are the properties probably that you are unlocking as IPs? Anything that you can share with our listeners.
I'll tell you it's the simplest and the sweetest and I think it's very doable for most brands. But for example, whenever we have a new member join us, we have something called as a welcome hamper that we send them. And this welcome hamper has a lot of products that have been curated from our brand partners. So these are essentially, great, interesting products. Obviously, we're very careful about the brands that we choose because we want them to be resonating with us. And they could be, they could be lifestyle brands, they could be, professional, etc. We just kind of like put a couple of these things together and we send them the hamper. The moment a person gets a hamper, the first reaction to unboxing something beautiful is that you want to take a picture of it or video of it and put it online.
So you capture that and then you,
we don't capture it, they do it themselves. Every month, say if you're adding like 50 to 60 to 100 new members, all of them will kind of like click a picture and then kind of put it up there. And when they do that, it's organically like marketing, getting them to sort of like talk about. And the moment that happens on social media, a few new people will slide into the DMs and be like, listen, I want to know more about this. Because it's a great, like, people are used to brands talking about themselves directly to them. But what really triggers them to take action is when they hear about someone from someone else. So that kind of like ref check helps people help brands get people more curious about you.
Awesome. Yeah, and exactly. And now let's again go a little deeper, one layer deeper. Why is this happening?
Deeper.
Exactly, like you mentioned, the word of mouth, or as the the Gen Z or young millennial lingo, FOMO. Like, so how do you, and then that's the one line task then, right? How do you create the FOMO on your community brand as a community marketer? And I can totally relate to what you were saying. Now let me bring in a bit of the Unstopped community story, how we are building it bit by bit. Very different target group, right? Like on campus UGPG folks, largely in the ACCA audience across the country and some global markets as well, and an early talent, like people like who have 3 years or below experience, right? So who are essentially wanting to learn or get mentored, or they just want to get better, slightly better in what they're doing. And what we see, the word of mouth is again the currency that we're going after, and that's really giving us ROI as well. Like the more the word spreads that there is something about Unstopped, right? So and the actual value that Unstopped as a platform gives, that's what gets that second or third person from there, right? So through sheer word of mouth. And in fact, I need to share an anecdote with you. I mean, as you know, one of my habits is to speak to the actual consumers in my first few days of the job. And this was a very cute anecdote that I had from one of the students. I think it was from one of the IITs, IIT Delhi or Kharagpur. I was having an interview that he has been using the platform for 2, 3 years in his college. And I asked him, what do you think about it? And his first reaction was that a marketing CEO. I said, yes. Why do you need to do marketing for Unstop? It's okay. It's nice. I look very nice. Yeah. You're telling me that I don't need to do my job. So, but that's the love that probably this brand just from the product has created. And I'm guessing if you would also speak to, and probably you already heard the sheer love that members of the community probably share, right? So what's your view on that? Something like this, any anecdote or what
No,
that word of
yeah.
mouth bit? Yeah, yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think that in today's day, if you're a founder, within marketing, and I would say within marketing, there are two things that are most important. I feel one is, the product itself, and maybe the messaging. Like, what is the communication? What is the message that you want to send out there? So if these are the two like most important things, and the reason why I say between both product is even more important is because if it's a good product, it sells for itself. Then marketing is more about creating love for the product rather than kind of like, finding a space for the product. And therefore, by marketing, I mean the communication marketing and just getting the word out there and messaging, etc. You can't amplify a product or talk about it or get this kind of leverage unless the product is solid. And if the product is solid, you will find that the overall pressure on having to spend inorganically and get your brand out there will reduce, and therefore you can think a little bit more creatively. And you can think about, really creating that distinct experience that will get spoken about. But I completely agree with you that when the product hits the right spot for the consumer, it kind of like you're basically just kind of managing and evolving with it, as marketing is trying to create like the right kind of experience rather than, kind of try to, mechanically fit that idea into someone's
Oh,
head.
yes, yes,
So, and I feel like we've experienced that at Ladies Who Lead as well, because once someone's a member, one of the largest shifts that we see is that for some of the members, the kind of confidence and the kind of like feeling that they get of being empowered by being on a platform where they're constantly in access with other exceptional people, and just being in that crowd kind of helps, elevate your own sense of self and what you're doing and your purpose and alignment with the right kind of people. So when that happens, they're so happy about it that they're very open to kind of talk about it and welcome new members and become the voice of the platform itself. So be it, after an event, like the post-event stories that we see on social media, which say things like, Ladies Who Lead, thank you for this opportunity, or thank you for just bringing
completely organic
together.
like this is completely organic and spawned. That's
it's we don't even have that big a team. Like when it comes to marketing, when it comes to marketing, there is just essentially 2 people on content and 1 person on, kind of marketing communications, managing all the media. So think about 1 media person, 1 content person. There is no marketing team that's strategizing like how it's going to be. There is a vision which has been set at the strategy leadership level. And it's just about kind of like the alignment within the team is so great for the vision that it's kind of like, coming in. Of course, we keep like tinkering a little bit with the communication of how we sort of like communicate who we are. But what the feeling that has to get communicated, that happens on its own because of the product and what we're creating. They know what it's about. Then it's about us adding more excitement to it. Like, for example, recently we decided we were calling ourselves a community of women leaders, and we did that, but we reached a point where we realized that, it's not a community. There is way more that is happening, and there's a lot of exchange, and there's an opportunity for even like partners, etc., to kind of come in and interact. And there's also like an appetite for it from the leader, like the member side. So we kind of like moved to calling ourselves a platform instead of calling ourselves a community, even though community is the base of it and we're building on top of it, but it's becoming a platform. So those kind of like nuances, changes that we keep doing as we go. But in the mind of the member, the feeling that they're supposed to take away of feeling empowered or confident or happy after an experience or interaction, or a problem being solved, that feeling we're able to deliver.
Awesome. And I want to, and I was taking mental notes of a few points, and one of them, I think this came back to me. Like one of my previous CEOs in one of my previous organizations had told me this, that the person who leads the brand mandate on a particular brand, whether it be community or any consumer product, it shows up in the communication as well, that the person's own personality shows up, right? So I remember discussing this with you at some point, right? So with you at the helm, I genuinely want to ask this: how much of you is actually getting translated, you or the folks handling it, right? So I mean, it also seeps into the culture that you have on the team that is handling the community brand as well, right? And the brand, it doesn't matter if it's a
Fair.
community brand. So what's your view on that? Because I'll tell you what my perspective is over the years, but yeah, I want to know you.
So what we've seen, this is like goes back to like just how do you form a business and a team and everything else. I think that in the world that we're in, and the future is going to be more about being purpose led. So you need to have a very clear idea of why you're doing what you're doing. Why is this brand important? Why are you building it? And it's important because in a world where everything is changing and you're like in flux constantly, like today you're building in a certain way, tomorrow there's a different feedback and you want to change something about the product, delivery, etc., whatever. Because of those changes, the only thing that will keep you energized is the fact that you're driven by a purpose. And this is for anyone who's like, say, a founder or is in the leadership of something. They need to kind of have a clear eye on where the purpose is leading them. I think that once kind of that is set, the second thing is the team building, because see, the team will never think like a leader as such, because they'll be younger or they'll be like, different stages of their career. They may not be thinking like the founder, but there has to be a certain kind of alignment to the purpose, because that's what then will kind of like take it. So take it forward and be able to give you the kind of delivery that you expect. And I think that is something that we've seen with our team as well. So for example, we were in a team meeting and we were just talking to everyone and asking them, what's your purpose that brings you here and what is the synergy that you see? And one of them said something very interesting. She said that, listen, I'm a person of impact. I do everything from the lens of impact. What is the social good that I'm doing? Therefore, over a period of time, I want to be able to make certain impact. And I see that since this is, even though it's a commercial organization, but because we are a purpose-driven business.
How old was this person who mentioned this? Sorry, I had to
26.
ask.
I think 26 or 20.
It fits. Yeah, please. Yeah, go on. Yeah, please.
You're thinking from the Gen Z point of view, but it's true. I think it's the world is such that everyone is trying to find their own purpose and want to align with something that gives them that gratification. So to your point, like, how does it kind of like percolate? I think it's not just about that. It's about like the whole engine coming together behind the same purpose. And I think that a little bit of, the engineering of what we're going to try first and what next kind of like maybe comes from past experiences of having, say, built communities or like content. Or for example, for us, Abha as a founder, she's from a media background. A lot of the ideas that she has about curation, what kind of a product, who needs to be a speaker, what kind of, topics and how to bring it together, how to create that experience. It comes from experience, so it kind of like percolates down. I think because I come from startup, lean, change, experiment, kind of like hustle kind of culture. So we do that a lot as well. So it's kind of like it's a mix of a lot of things. And that goes down. But the reason why it actually gets delivered is because the team's also equally aligned and finds the brand aspirational as well. Like they're also equally excited about the work that we do.
Awesome. And Malvika, this is so fascinating. What you just told me, how you answered this, bringing in purpose, right? And purpose has been much like abused in the world that you and I belong to, marketing, unfortunately. But I think thankfully the two brands that we are on right now, and I think they do serve a great purpose to do a larger good in the community. And I think one connected concept, again, another word which is much abused, that I think we are now using as professionals, is empathy. Unless you have empathy for the consumer that you are serving, you will not be able to, with full honesty, build that community in the way that you need to co-create it. Like in my vision, right, in my perspective right now, I cannot build this community with the numbers that I want to go after unless I co-create it with them. I can't do it alone. Like I have to walk the talk with them, which is where I think the network effect that you talked about comes in, which is where the purpose comes in, right? So unless I breathe and feel that purpose every day at work, if I do my job only as a job, this won't happen. I'm sensing that's the air that you breathe within LWL every day as well, from what you just shared. So I think that empathy
Yeah.
as a concept, I remember you being very passionate about the concept of empathy. So would you also agree that this
Yeah.
this is a connected association?
Yeah, I think empathy is important because you should be able to understand emotions in a certain way.
Yeah.
Empathy and emotions are very sort of like similar. Also, I feel that I also have a theory around like empathy versus compassion, where you're not kind of like, just kind of like feeling, because
Mm.
feelings sometimes go up and down. Sometimes they're kind of like misguided. Most
Yeah.
feelings come from past traumas, so they may not even be healthy. So to be feeling them with someone may not make sense. But coming to a point of understanding from a very compassionate point of view and building for your consumers to have like genuine love for their well-being,
Yeah.
you know, I think that's very important. So purpose and like the purpose should be found with an idea of like genuine love, even though you may not empathize with them as such, because you'll be like, okay, you've gotten into a certain situation,
Yeah.
or there are whatever. But I think it's more about understanding what their goals are and what would be better for them,
Mm.
and being able to kind of like look at that from a lens of love and not from a lens of like, oh, just commercial like benefits. And like, how do you really help the other person thrive with all the complexities that exist between them? I don't know if it was a little confusing, but I do believe that aligning with a purpose that's like really authentic and true becomes very easy, because otherwise what happens honestly is that you yourself only in trying to figure out everything burn out.
Mhm.
Imagine now you're empathizing with a young consumer,
Mm.
and they're quite confused themselves because the world is complex. Their life is also changing on a daily basis, so you're also kind of like changing with them and trying to figure everything out,
Yeah.
for them. It's chaotic. How do you cut through the chaos which exists in almost every startup that we see around us?
Yeah.
Is the purpose, because then you'll be able to say, no, we don't do this. Yes, we do this, because there's a purpose to it. It's not just that, oh, we're just kind of like all in terms of even creating a product and like all in for everyone. So for example, for you, if you're creating for all students, you'll probably create like a very confused product, but you
Mhm.
have a target audience, and
Yeah.
that's your purpose, to solve that. And then in the process, a lot of things get solved. I feel
Yeah, yeah. So to the listeners,
is
this is
my
still
like
no, it's okay. To the listener, just a timely reminder that this is still a marketing podcast, although empathy, compassion, love are all being uttered in the same sentence. So I'll just try to mix it up now, like we do in all our episodes. Let's lighten the conversation slightly and move to
okay.
a few other trivial added questions. Malvika, just wanted to discuss with you, like if I ask you some of the brands that you respect who have done a great job over the years, either globally, with the objective of building a good, great community brand, great company. Let's talk about great company brands. What are the top one, two, or three brands that come to your mind? Bumble, I think Bumble, I really like what they're doing with Bumble. I really like how they have sort of
Yeah,
built a
I
distinctive,
don't
yeah.
hmm. I think from a branding point of view, yes, I don't know much about their like community building efforts. But for example, I think what say what Amazon does for its affiliate
Mm.
community,
Yeah.
and what say Instagram does with their creator community is
Mm.
very interesting. And I think that obviously that's a certain target audience that they're kind of marketing to,
Yeah.
but just the kind of association that people feel, the way that they bring everyone together on the same page through multiple events that get talked about in a way that everyone today wants to get into that league of being like a certain kind of a creator with on these platforms.
Yeah.
um Also the kind of content that they create, they're sort of like constantly serving you know
Yeah.
these tips, tricks, etc., to content creators to help them just get better every day. So
Yeah.
I think in terms of creating a community there and being able to serve them both online in terms of like valuable content, and then also being able to like bring them together and create like a very close knit community, and also
Yeah.
create that sense of like importance that you feel when you are in that league and getting invited to these events. You see
Yeah.
that it's something that everyone is already like aspiring to be. So that's like a perfect sort of. I know that there's obviously a there is obviously a commercial aspect to it, or why it's aspirational. But then, people make money all the time, but the kind of vibe that's created through their efforts is, I feel like, something that's worth talking about. Apart from that, I think.
Yeah, I actually love the two examples before you, because you typically, when you think of, in fact, I was expecting you, or I was definitely thinking about some user level community. It's a great example that you picked up, which is up, higher up in the value chain. So Amazon with its affiliates, and also Insta with its, or rather Meta with its creators, right? So I think these are good examples. And by the way, Malvika, just one information in this podcast, we try to give hacks and solutions to our listeners as well, from our own experiences and perspectives. So I think this is a great perspective that you can pick up from what she just shared, that you need not just think of other user communities. There are things to be picked up from other communities, from other parts of the value chain as well, marketing value chain. And maybe again, I'm trying really hard not to use cross tab, but combine it with what the business problem you're having there. Yeah, please.
By the way, I want to say that Instagram ke liye creators are not like a sub community. They're not like a different community. Sorry, it is a sub community,
it's
right?
a user,
Like, even it's a user only. What they've done is, for their best users, they've kind of like, by best I mean people who are creating more content, high quality content or whatever. They've kind of like handpicked those, created a community, made them feel like, oh, they're a creator, and put a tab to it, and then elevate them, which makes it aspirational for other consumers to want to be a part of it. So it's a sub thing, but
which is exactly what, and great that you bring that up, LinkedIn is doing. I think LinkedIn has taken a leaf out of the book of Meta. And in fact, like, I personally have been, over the last couple of months, been receiving continuous mails from and nudges from LinkedIn to be within their top voices program, which is essentially they want to, they're literally like feeding me like on AI generated articles on their platform and saying, you add your expert view within whatever marketing, branding, etc. And the nudges were so strong, I couldn't resist. Like, again, probably had a FOMO as well, that other people with lesser number of followers are doing, then why should I leave out, etc. So I ended up doing it. But I think I can see what you're saying. Like, how do you upgrade users to some top voices or creators in the case of Meta? Yeah. So when does a brand do that? When does a brand do that, and why? Yeah, please. What do you think?
I think for communities, it is important anyway, because think about it this way, that communities are never about the quantity, they are about the quality. But when you have to scale, you will eventually lose out on the quality, right? Because you're getting so many new people who probably are not good. And I'm saying content creators in this case, but say, for example, even, maybe you're going, it could be in any community. There would always be the long tail of people who are not, and by quality, who are we to judge? But the point is that, you're, how sharp it is to the TG. You're moving away from the TG as you're like expanding, right? So the thing is that in order to keep the vision to those central core people who kind of really imbibe the values of the community, you have to do something special for them, because otherwise the focus will keep them engaged. Otherwise, your top people will leave to a new platform because they don't want to be with the expanded kind of like community ever. So it's kind of like, at any point, when you hit scale and that now you moved away from your core TG, you need to start very carefully thinking about your core TG and making sure that they never leave you. They need to be like, your biggest believers. How do you engage with them? And that's when you can, very easily keep scaling the long tail. And I feel like, also, if you think about what a community is, like, what is community marketing? Eventually, it's not just about helping people subscribe to that thing, because that, I think, is the first time. It's about making them stay. So when you say making them stay, how are they engaging? How are you getting them to kind of like add to the community, get enough value?
This is a way to make them stay. This is one way to make them stay.
Yeah. And which is why, like, almost all communities, we have community managers. We have 4 community managers. There are dedicated people to every city who are interacting offline and online, because we know that right now we're still very tight to our core, but we are going to become bigger. But the main TG needs to be served so that we're able to even preserve our brand as a community.
Beautiful. You mentioned something, I think a couple of answers back, and that I wanted to ask, and let's pick that up now, which is potential partners that as a brand you can work with. I think you did a great activation with JLR, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. So again, and I think you mentioned that it's not just any brand that you want to pick up. You need to find a fitment with the premiumness, or let's say the profile and the target group that you're going after. A brand which has to be relevant to your own core existing audience and beyond. Tell us something about that. Like, how did you, maybe with the example of JLR, why did you choose them, and how was the experience of partnering with them? And going ahead, how do you see that sort of helping you in growing bigger?
I think in the world that we live in, because everyone's so like collaborative now, partnerships are not just like a way to sort of like market yourself, they're also part of the product. So for example, for us, our members think of partnerships as a part of the product, and these are privileges that you get because you're a part of the community. So that it's not just limited to the community, you're actually like tapping into like tens of brands. That's like, as a privilege or a product, it works really well. In terms of just the marketing and the collaboration part, I think that eventually what needs to solve between two brands is the fact that they have the same sort of like core messaging that they're trying to kind of, or they have like, you know, a singular message to tell that, you know, common target audience. And I think otherwise it's very easy for people to tell that, oh, this is just a marketing collaboration, because it doesn't flow in organically. We do that a lot in terms of like, you know, when we're talking to brands, we try to figure if they're like coming in as a sponsor to sponsor an event, or if they're coming in to engage as a privilege, etc. We try to understand more from them, who their target audience is, how would they like to like really seamlessly be a part of it, what could the story be, how will we position it to our members, why we're doing it. Over a period of time, we've realized that because we're looking at leadership in women, and these are fairly senior women, minimum 5 years of experience, they have a good clue of where they're going and what they want to do with their careers and are driven enough. So what we've seen is that eventually for them to become better leaders and stronger leaders, there are three paths, partnerships that we can look at. One is professional and work-related partnerships. So whether it be knowledge partners, we've done something with EY, Deloitte, we also have a lot of like legal firms, you know, financial firms who are a part of, you know, who are like, you know, who are our partners, and members can reach out for their services at a privilege. Some kind of a privilege is involved in all of them. That's work professional. Then there's travel and hospitality, because we've realized that people are traveling a lot and they're constantly looking for privileges in that front, be it hotels or travel, etc. So trying to figure out a few there. We have a lot of hospitality partnerships. Travel, we're trying to think of more, and we will add them through the year. And the last one is luxury, and like, you know, just that extra bit of fun, because a lot of times the real learning and the real kind of collaboration and bonds get built when you're having fun, and not when you're kind of like, you know, deep into work, because there you're more focused. So we wanted to create like spaces for our members where they're actually just having fun with each other, in the sense they're just chatting, having conversations, they're building real bonds. Because next day they can pick the phone up if they have comfort and say that, hey, listen, I want to work with you. Do you want to collaborate on this project? I've got this business proposition. But you need to build that comfort with someone to kind of reach out and have a good conversation. So that bonding happens at these kind of events. And therefore, the reason why JLR sort of like made sense for us was, and this was with AMP Motors in Gurgaon. One was that, you know, it was adventure. It was about women being behind on wheels. We drove all the way to Lalit Mangar, and in the way there was this like really one, you know, road through the, you know, the countryside, and it was kind of like rocky, and it was broken in certain places. It was almost like thrill to it, which brought people together. Because the moment we all reached and got off the cars, everybody's like, you know, kind of just jamming and like, whoa, that was fun. Or like someone felt like, oh, I was scared at this point, but this came. It's about going through that whole experience of kind of like coming together as a community and having like a nice shared experience. Secondly, I think it was also very exciting because we had two of our members. There was Niharika Yadav and Miral. Both of them are, you know, super bikers. They're very, very popular. Miral's she's done so many countries on her bike. And her stories are phenomenal. Niharika's also like a super biker and a dentist. So these two phenomenal ladies, they were the ones driving the car. The rest of the members were also like took turns in the middle. And I think that whole interaction and the whole, you know, messaging of like women behind the wheels having a great adventure was what we felt was kind of like also like positioning what Ladies Who Lead stands for as well.
So Malvika, now moving forward, and again, within the ambit of community marketing, just want to do some future gazing, if you may like, right? So of course, unbelievably, I think 40 minutes into the recording, we haven't yet uttered that acronym which everyone else is doing, which is AI, right? So
Yeah.
let's now talk about AI and generative AI, or let's say any tech or tool dependence or integration that you foresee or probably you're already implementing in your community marketing practices. So anything that you're doing or planning to do, which you can share as a perspective with our listeners.
For us, when it comes to AI, haven't really started implementing it in any way, really.
Okay.
I think, of course, like from a content marketing point of view, I keep telling the team that,
To use, be efficient
yeah,
by
to
using it.
use it to brainstorm, use it to look
Yeah.
at like other options, ideas, get a more exhaustive sense of things. Still, I think the kind of copy that comes out from AI, if you just kind of like type something in Chat GPT and get it, and then you start using it, it's probably not going to be, not going to feel the right on brand. So you've got to also train it in a certain way. You've got to experiment with it. There's always a person kind of like, reviewing it and putting it out there. But I do encourage the team to play with it for sure, whether it be for, like decks or just emails, etc. Just to get like a larger perspective like that. But I think in terms of the future, AI is going to obviously impact everything. The efficiency in the next, there are two questions. One is, how does it make our jobs easier and better, which is the next 5 years or 10 years horizon, which essentially means that everything from, and for larger brands, it could be everything from media planning to automating your marketing, emailers, all of that, to be AI driven will be so much more efficient, because then now it's not the people who are thinking about it. Even like, your marketing executive can get a lot of things established if you've given them the right brief. So that will,
please continue.
No, I was just going to say that's the overall, if you look at the entire space as a whole, it's going to disrupt everything in terms of just the efficiency of how we do the marketing. But in terms of, like one key trend that I think will definitely come into the community space is engagement. How are we able to create like personalized engagement for each and every person based on their needs? Like when is it that they log in? What would they like to see? How are we able to kind of like connect the right people to the right people based on, what we're kind of like predicting their circle to be? Social media already does it. But I'm just still kind of like thinking about AI kind of powering, technology. And then there's obviously the generative AI where you're able to sort of like talk and create like, these really personalized experiences with a chatbot. I don't know, maybe like for community management to happen through it is a huge space where the needs of each and every member in the community are solved instantly and with great like personalization and depth that generative AI can do. So I think that's where it's interesting, but I think communities will still be a lot about the in-person and the human experience and the connection, because human connection is the central theme, and that's essentially the only thing that we're also looking to preserve. Because when you look at then the 50-year horizon, you're like, will even human connection exist where you're able to get everything that you need as a human being from a personal assistant that's like 100 million times more smarter than you and is able to like give you exactly what you are looking for?
That's if you look back at human civilization, that has happened every time such a big shift has happened, whether it be industrial revolution or let's say the internet, which happened in 80s, 90s, and then now, right? So, and then 2, 3 nice anecdotes, Malvika, that I incidentally stumbled upon through personal experiences. Like this afternoon, I was in a webinar for my brand with the growth head of Swiggy, and I was asking him what is he doing, right? So within Swiggy, and he gave a very interesting possibility. He said that even till now, on the best of apps, let's say ordering apps like Zomato, Swiggy, etc., you still have to input first, and once they get the pattern, and then they start recommending whatever, like your most likely cuisine, etc., right? Or restaurants. That's going to stop. With AI, it's going to be now, even before you see something, they are going to recommend. The recommendation engine is going
It's
next
going to know
level,
you.
yeah, and I think if you've seen the latest episode of Black Mirror, which hit Joan is awful. That's exactly what they say. That I don't know, like probably Malvika is sitting here, and she'll probably switch on Netflix, and she'll see the stream of a season on her own bio happening basis her the phone which is listening to her, and finding her own person and figuring out an episode. So that recommendation engine that like you might also like, which comes on Netflix, is going to now impede into every aspect of her life, give or take 6 to 12 months. So I think if you that's slightly doomsday sort of sounding, but I think the positive bit here within community builders like you and me is, I mean, probably when the community member has joined the community with a certain set of expectations and something which he or she doesn't know, it's probably a great opportunity for us to use tech to give them something more every day, right? Even before they ask, and I think we can help them imagine a better community experience like that. The second thing, and I think this is slightly executional for us marketers, but a guy who I was interviewing shared this beautiful example of how he is using ChatGPT, and he said that earlier when I went in with, let's say, 2-3 creative proposals to a brief which was on my table to a meeting, I was jittery that okay, this is my way of looking at things, but I don't know what are the third, fourth, fifth views which are here back. So what he does before going into a meeting, he feeds the creative that he has created on ChatGPT and says, "What's your view? Give me 5 different views." And so apart from his view, right? So I think he now is getting in advance before going into meetings 4 or 5 different views that are potentially coming in. And you were saying it's fascinating, Alekhya, because I am hearing, I'm more prepared because I'm prepared with an answer to that that scenario, that scenario, that scenario, and that's a great smart usage of the tool, right? So and I picked up a example right away to imbibe into my day-to-day operations. And the one more slight observation that I have, which is not so rosy, is that I think one thing people are not realizing it as not everyone will go from A to B here with AI. You need to have that foundational level of skill, whatever you are trying to perfect with the use of tools. So someone who is here will become awesome. Someone who is absolutely a novice will probably just become good, but will never
Not be
become
able.
awesome. Yeah, so you
Yeah.
still need that foundational level
I
of skill. Yeah, so
I agree with you. And I feel like what people with very deep skill in one aspect,
yeah,
a specialization, will be able to do much more with it than having like generalized skills across like, different things.
yeah,
I mean, I'm just saying that like immediately in the next 3 to 4 years, how to like quickly kind of leverage
yeah,
AI, it'll become easier to kind of grasp and understand and build on top of that.
yeah,
So I personally think that AI will have immense impact on every facet of marketing, whether
yeah,
it be the messaging, into how like you can sort of plan your messages for different kind of mediums
personas,
and how to
yeah,
do it well
mediums,
and
yeah,
personas, etc. And even like you said, like looking at it from different aspects and then fine tuning it to become even more sharp
yeah,
and hardworking. But I think that in terms of media and even like the kind of media that will emerge, I think that search, I don't know how search will be. It's not going to be like Google search anymore, but
so
will it
Google
be
search
voice search? Will it?
yeah, that's the biggest challenge for Google, right? So I mean, that is being challenged, like
Yeah.
SEO, is it even SEO is even
Which
relevant?
is,
Yeah,
no, but I think that it will evolve and it'll change. So think about
yes,
it this way, that today you have Google search and you're able to like put in, like you said, an input and get some answers. But now you can have a conversation. Like this is something I saw on the internet, that maybe 5 years down the line, you're able to say something like, I have a few friends coming over and I'm thinking of like, ordering something for them to eat, but one of them is a vegetarian, one of them is a non-vegetarian, and then the other two, I'm not sure what they like. So it could be a mix. And I want something which is not main course, but not very light, also somewhere in the middle.
yeah,
And just give like something and say that, can you please like think about what I can do and order it on Swiggy, for example.
yeah,
And maybe it'll happen. So, like, but that's voice. It's not even search. It's
yeah,
about putting an intent out there. You don't have to like write what you're looking for. You don't have to think about what you need. You just have
correct.
to put an intent,
Yeah,
and you're able to kind of do all of those things. Within community, I don't know how it will work. I think communities will still remain about human experience more than ever. And while I think most of us will get addicted to like the more convenient and easy life of the way with generative AI and other things,
yeah,
but I think the people who are still kind of like very close to the human experience, a part of it will become even more exclusive,
yeah,
even more like sought after, where you're able to kind of like plug out from everything and enter a community experience that is something more than just the super efficient way of doing things otherwise, and really kind of like maybe sitting down and making your own meal in a certain way, because
yeah,
you don't have like AI based I don't know, like cooking machines that can make your
cooking
entire
machines.
meal for you. It's just like one big one. You don't know like what is possible, but like getting together and enjoying that culinary experience together,
Yeah,
where you're making and doing it as a community, in a food community, for example,
hmm,
it will be more experiential. And already I think you can see that today, that people are so used to and are almost like bogged down by social media, in the sense that low attention spans, it causes anxiety. Sometimes
Yeah.
you like go through it and you feel good about it. Most of the time, most people say that it makes you a little bit more anxious and a little bit more addicted. It is a feeling of addiction on social media. So, which is why now offline experiences are working well for brands, because people are sort of like done with the whole online experience.
Oh yes, yeah.
Many people, not
Those two and a
everyone.
half years just feels like, it took away a big chunk of our lives, right? Those 2.5 years of largely online living and connecting with each
And
other.
like,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So I feel that communities, I don't know, there are certain efficiencies in it. For
Mm.
example, community management, engagement, creating maybe things to do every day that make the community more buzzing, active, maybe enabling each member with the right kind of support tools to be
Yeah.
able to collaborate better and create more collaborative content, products, and, initiatives and projects. Maybe a lot of that could like disrupt. But I think the core of community needs to be human connection, because if that is lost, then I don't know what community marketing could mean
Will be about.
anymore.
Yeah.
Then it'll just be about more transactional other stuff.
It's great that you mentioned offline, because that was my next question, right? Sort of segues into that how do you, in your calendar, if I may use the transactional word, balance the online and offline events? And again, considering that yes, there will be a resource constraint because offline events do cost you something. And one thing I picked up, and it was very interesting, the choice of travel and hospitality partners which you have. Now, one is that fitment with the life cycle and the journey of your users, that they're more likely to be users of those brands. But I think also it's a smart choice, because it actually helps you probably net off your maybe offline events costs. Like, so if you're a smart marketer, probably you can actually use it that way and choose those partners, and hence it's a win-win for both, right? So just if you can help throw some light on how do you look at offline events in your calendar, and yeah, like what is the weightage and how do you plan it?
So our product is three-part product. There are the privileges and the partnerships that we spoke about. There is the online access to the network. So if you want to talk to the network, you want to get a recommendation, you want to share a recommendation, you have a resource request, a mentorship request, a request for a meetup, etc. All of that is online on one platform where our members can log on and just kind of collaborate through the network. The in-person networking, which is through the events, is the third part of the product, which is completely offline. Sometimes for some of these events, we do give online access through live streaming, but mostly we keep them all offline. And the reason for that is because the kind of bond and safe space that gets created offline when you're in the same room, it's way more than online. I think also by the virtue of when we started, this was right after the pandemic. 2021 was when the membership model started for LWL. At that point, there was a literal fatigue of online events, and nobody wanted to go back to that. We're at a point where we now want to start maybe experimenting with some online events, and we encourage our members to start their own events if they want online on the platform. Like, a lot of the programming in the future will become more member-led.
Yes.
If a member wants to hold their own workshop, they can just create a creative and post it on the main community page. And when they do that, other members kind of collaborate and kind of meet up to hear out the workshop. So that kind of collaboration, we're still looking at online collaboration because we feel that there's scale there. But wherever we exist as an offline model, we do at least 2 to 4 events in a month in a city. And those cities are essentially Delhi, Mumbai, Pune, and Bangalore. And that's what, and Ashina, it's very important to get the community feel to start, because online, even if you put your entire life out there, it's very difficult for people to relate to you as a part of the same community. It's a different vibe when two people meet and there is a exchange of like energy and conversation. It doesn't happen online. Online, it's still the idea of a community. It's not really a community, because, and then once you have an offline arm, the way that it translates into online then makes online more meaningful as well. But if it's just online, I don't know if there is in the world now, if it's possible to create that
Only
human
online
connection
or only offline
purely
within
online.
yeah. What I like in your answer is the sort of flexibility in not being fixated with one single type and being open to depending on what is the context, right? So and then figuring out a solution.
I personally feel that in general, the future is going to become about flexibility more than anything.
Yeah.
Um,
No matter which domain, whatever product you're handling.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like you can't be certain of anything. There is this, how you have those 5 Ws. I
Yeah.
feel like you can't be certain of anything. The
Yeah.
only thing that you can say with certainty is why
Mm, mm.
you're going to do something, the
Yeah.
purpose behind it. The
Correct.
what will change, the how will change. In fact, the what and the how, the chat GPT will tell you. You don't even
Yeah.
have to the one thing that it can't do for you is the why. It can't tell you why it needs to be done. Unless, as human beings, you only fed it in. So the why is something that we're sort of still the leaders of.
Yeah, this is so right, and I'll just add a different perspective to it in line with a few things that I keep on sharing with some mentees. So we also have a mentorship platform, by the way, where I offered my time for free just to test the product out, and also I love talking to youngsters, as you know, and then they keep on asking this one recurring question that should I take up this line, should I take up that line, whether it be FMCG or consulting or something, and I think I've realized and I've chosen this answer now that please be open to anything. For example, Tintin, I mean he's 10 now. I don't know what job he'll take up 7, 8 years down the line. And then who am I? Like, it's so difficult to predict. And I think, like you said, being flexible, even in your career choices or how you run a brand, community, or otherwise, is probably that's the only constant, right? So being flexible
Yeah.
will be the only constant. Yeah.
As a, for example, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like, for example, as a legacy brand marketer, like when you've for years you've built this amazing, TVCs and these huge productions that bring the best of stories and acting and that 20-30 seconds of pure storytelling and resonance with a consumer, to now move to reels get you as much reach but doesn't even have to be that fine. It just has to be raw. There is a certain amount of flexibility that we all need to have for everything as marketers, and that is the future of marketing. In fact, will have to be the most kind of
Flexible.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't see the financial models change as much.
Yeah.
Eventually,
The only
you're
constant is they'll give us less monies to execute and experiment our plans. Yeah,
yeah
that's what.
yeah but also then more tools, and therefore I think the ROI will be far greater for marketers who are able to be that flexible, for kind of being able to do more experiments rather than that one mega activity, because those little experiments will probably at one place just catapult into becoming something for you. So
Awesome.
just in terms of where is the future, I was just trying to get to that.
No, great. And yeah, I agree with you. Okay, now we're coming to the end, and last couple of questions from my end and conversations enders, not starters. One, Malvika, if I think नाना करते करते आपका भी काफी उम्र हो गया in the world of marketing and experience. So, any tips you have? Let's say, okay, 3 tips जो आप बोलोगे हमारे young listeners को or viewers को.
Within marketing or between community?
Marketing. So in here, I'm going a little meta here. So we've talked enough about community marketing, I think, and
Okay.
yeah. So marketing, young marketing professionals or listeners. Yeah.
I think one is that when you're marketing, I think I've already kind of touched upon all of these things that I'm going to say in some form or the other, but it's more like a summary answer. But I think the first one as a marketer is that you need to think the why for the product very carefully, and therefore you need to be very, very, very close to the insight of why you're doing something and why it's important to sell that product, what difference and what impact it's bringing, because that's the only thing that will relate to your consumer. Everything else, you will have to be super flexible and be ready to do that. Is I think number one. Number two is watch out for again, when you're putting content out there, because I think that search advertising is going to become even more intuitive and very integral to how we live our daily lives. It's not just going to be on a screen. It's going to sort of be 360-degree around us in everything, every button that we press. We're going to be putting intentions out there. So in order to win, SEO, I feel will look a little different. So SEO will also, instead of being about keyword matching, it's going to be more about intention matching. So as a brand, you need to also create way more content that on the internet that feeds into the chat GPT, or have your own chat interface that you can build over, say, your own language model that kind of, actually, I don't know if that's possible to do that or not, but I'm just trying to say that put your purpose and intention out there very, very carefully and and push it out there enough for people to know, because that's what even the tools will interact with, and kind of like be able to connect you as a product to the right consumer.
Okay.
Then I think that experiential and communities will still be strong. So in order to stay connected to people,
I like how
think
you're
about
plugged in community again in your tip as well. But nice, good.
community or experiential in any place where they're able to sort of like, physically be in the vicinity of your product and try it out. I still think like the point of sales marketing, be it like sampling or, like a delight extra, like, freebie with your product, etc. If you're a physical brand, will still be something that will give people a lot of delight, because online just content will not make sense. I know that I'm not being very succinct here, but just
no, fair. Yeah. You're saying the balancing the tangible and intangible will be
it's very important, because imagine that you're in a world where it's so easy now to create content, easy to create content, that if you have 1 billion content pieces out there in a year, you probably have like 10, 20, 100 billion times more. So clearly, because of like deep fakes and the ease of it, it's going to be a lot more of it. How will you stand out? It's only in the physical realm that you can still kind of like create like a stronger relationship, because hopefully when a person is like standing there in front of you, there's like, you can still have more of their attention. But then again, it's about how do you draw to make them come to that place and share that space with you. I think it's going to be a lot about collaborations as well, for small brands to grow, to collaborate with bigger brands, and kind of like that referral network within brands to emerge, is going to be extremely important. And I think as marketers, this is not something to do with AI in future and everything, but I think one mistake that a lot of like young folks do is that they mix up like everything from like message to the media to like what metrics, etc. So for example, if you say how will you market something like this, it's always like one social media post, one reel, and one video.
One influencer
Influencer, so you forget that there are 3 parts to it. Figure out your messaging first, which is purpose driven. Then you figure out the media, but media doesn't have to be planned for a year anymore. You plan it by the day, you plan it by the month, you plan it in short sprints, and then you keep kind of evolving as you go, and you follow your consumer there. In terms of the metrics, just look at things like, instead of even engagement, think about the quality of interaction and the quality of the output and the content, rather than just metrics and numbers. I think that a lot of things will have to be looked at more qualitatively now, because it'll be very easy to kind of like, feed in numbers and show like impact and be like, okay, we've reached like 3 million people, but what does that mean? Because there is no attention.
I
just those kind of.
Anything else? No, because I love the pointers.
You said 3.
You get 4 and you get 4. So no, I was counting and I was listening to it intently. Nice, great structured option. And it doesn't matter if you summarized a few. I think you summarized it pretty well. I mean, starting from the why, right? And then Simon Sinek will be proud. We started from the why, and then moving on to, like you said, the balance of tangible and intangible. And I really like that, with that, because of the oversupply on the intangibles on the online world, and hence the value of a tangible, a warm connection, whether it be in community marketing or otherwise, will become so much more. I really like that. Then third, you mentioned the value of partnerships. I think we talked about it earlier or during the episode and otherwise. And I think, within partnerships, again, the bit about the warm connection within, like-minded brands and otherwise. And then the last bit that you mentioned, the thinking through in execution, like you said, from the messaging to from purpose to channel, etc. I think I quite like that as well. Cool. I think, and like I promised, the last question then. And I do not have a coffee hamper at the end of it. I'm sorry. I know you are a coffee lover, but a bit of a rapid fire, yeah. So yeah. So I'll put you on the spot.
I did not prepare for this.
It's okay. You're not supposed to be prepared. You're supposed to be spontaneous and just answer whatever comes to your mind and heart. Right? So
no pressure.
No pressure. So in this era of information overload, and especially for us marketers every day, what's the one piece of content that you really swear by every day? Like whether it be newsletter or let's say someone's Instagram I don't know, Adam Grant or someone that you really look forward to? Like, don't miss a post. Like, what is the one piece of content?
Oh, like actual, like for
Yeah,
me.
yeah, for you.
Oh,
Yeah, not like general.
um,
You. Yeah. This is the space
hmm.
where you are being put on spot. No, so it's you.
Okay, I actually really like the content that Simon Sinek puts out there too. I think it's of course about the what, why, how, and everything that he does. But I think the fact that he's all about like optimism is
Mm,
something that I enjoy reading, because I think that there needs to be a very, very healthy optimism, like levels of optimism in the society today, because we are at the helm of technology and we're making technology think for us and do work for us. I think if people are more optimistic and are building for good, then there is a lot of amazing innovation that will come our way in the next 10 years. So I think that everything that he puts out there, just in terms of like good, positive mindset, motivation, it keeps me going. I also like this girl, Cody Sanchez, a lot. She
okay.
talks about building boring businesses. And I think with her, I think again, it's like some amount of learning that I get with every particular, piece of
Yeah.
post. And which is why I feel one other thing, going back to that like answer, it's so important to give value to your consumer now more than ever before, because it's so transactional that every transaction needs to deliver value. Otherwise, it's
Yeah.
tough to kind of like hold people. So anyway, with these two, I think that I
Absolutely.
really find it like, I think it adds value to my life when I hear or read their
Super.
posts.
Super. Yeah, two good recos. The next question and the last question, and then we call it a day. How does one crack Instagram reel with 5 million views? And as someone who has been there, done that by putting herself as a face, how does one do that?
Yeah,
How do, tell us a secret.
I do. I feel like the secret to that is that you make 30 Instagram reels a month, and then one of them will like
Will.
blow up, will blow
Yeah.
up. I think
Yeah.
it's about experimenting a lot and just see, when there is so many options
Yeah.
and you don't know what aligns, because everything's in flux and it's constantly changing. The only thing that you can do is not think too much and put yourself out there as a brand,
Yeah.
and just see like the response and go with it.
Yeah.
I Yeah. But do that on shorts now. It's more possible to
Correct.
go viral on shorts because it's YouTube and they're
Correct.
promoting it. Mm.
And I think that's a good hack and a tip that you mentioned, which is very genuine. That being at it 30 days means you have to plan the production that way. And I clearly remember how you used to push the video team always that shoot things at one go, like 7 videos, reels, potential reels at one go, at one a day. I think that's still the way to go, right? So get that in the can and then figure out a way to put it out together. Being consistent and planning in advance. So I think it's a good executional hack that we've given.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Malvik. I think thank you for your time. This was great, and really, I think you've given us a lot of thoughts to mull over and put a great episode together. Great having you over. Any parting thoughts for East India Marketing Company?
Yes.
What can we do better? And yeah, what can we?
I think that you guys are doing a phenomenal job. I'm just like very excited that I got this chance to be here and chat about marketing with you, Alekhya, after such a long time.
Yeah,
And yeah, I hope that it was valuable, and I wish that we keep kind of like having these chats and figuring out marketing as we go, because I think things will keep changing, and every 6 months you'll have something completely new to talk
yeah,
about in
yeah.
this space. I've subscribed to your channel, so
Thank
I
you.
get all the notifications. I'm doing that plug for you in the end.
Yeah,
But
like, share, and
yeah, like
subscribe.
I'm really looking forward to some of the other podcasts that you put out there
Yeah.
also.
Thank you so much, Malvika, and thanks for the shout out. And like we said, like 6 months back, both of us wouldn't have probably had a community marketing conversation to have, and this is where we are going and talking at length for almost an hour, right? So we don't know what will be there 6 months down the line. Maybe within this, we'll discover other things to experimentation, and there's one more episode. Why wait for 6 months? Maybe earlier itself, right? Great, thank you, and that's all we have for viewers and listeners today. Thank you for being with us.